Hello, everyone. Looks like, oh, there's Annie, and there's my mom. And yes, we might have just a little group today. That's okay. Yeah, I'm super excited to do our color theory part 3 today. So if you guys didn't get your printouts done, that's okay. You can just watch and you can do it later if you like. Yeah, so today what we're going to be talking about primarily, get it? It's a little color theory humor, primarily. What we're going to be talking about primarily is limited palettes. So a limited palette is a set of colors that you have designated as the colors that you primarily gravitate to whenever you do a painting. A limited palette can be anywhere from, it really could be, hello, Eileen. It really could be 2 colors, black and white. That's a limited palette. It could be, it could be 15 colors. But the point is that you gain enough experience with the colors to say, these are the colors that I'm going to use because I know they do what I need them to do. And I know sometimes if you've never used a limited palette before, it seems very limiting, right? You think, why would I pin myself into this box to use a handful of colors? What if I can't make a color and I need it for this painting, or I decide in this painting I want to use a different set of colors? You're the artist, you make the rules. So I know a lot of you have heard this before because we've done some color theory in the past, but I want you guys to do a quick Google search for Anders Zorn. So Anderszorn. Anders Zorn. Welcome, Janice. Anders Zorn had a very limited palette, and it's become so famous, it's called the Zorn palette. So let's see, palette. So the Zorn palette, his limited palette was yellow ochre, ivory black, titanium white, and vermilion. That right there. That was his limited palette. But if you look at some of his paintings, you might look at it and think, it doesn't seem like that's all he used. Like, here's a painting, I'm pretty sure it's only those 4 colors used in this painting. However, let's see. He's got quite a wide range of paintings. He's a phenomenal artist. If you guys aren't familiar with Anders Zorn, you definitely should go check out his art. So I'm looking at the Google image results. And here we have a painting by Anders Zorn that's got green in it. A lot of green. It's fairly bright green. Now with yellow ochre and black, you can get a green of sorts, but not that green. So he decided, I need green. So he brought in something to make green. There's another one that I'm looking for in particular. I can't find it, but it's got some really deep blues in it. And clearly there's no blue in his palette. So he brought in a blue. So all that is to say that a limited palette doesn't mean that you are limiting yourself. My limited palette consists of 3 regular colors. Not because I'm trying to outdo, Zorn or anything. That's just how my palette developed. I have 3 colors that are in almost every single painting. And then I have a set of kind of ancillary colors that I rotate through. You know, one or two, maybe even three of them will make it into a painting, but this next painting might have completely different colors. So a limited palette is not limiting. The reason for a limited palette is, there's so many reasons. First and foremost, it's part of your personal style. So if you've ever wondered, how do I find my personal style, which is a question I get a lot, developing a limited palette is going to be one of your first steps to getting that. You know, establishing a set of colors that are in all of your paintings is going to be part of your signature. Somebody could look at it and say, oh, that looks like so-and-so because it's got the same kind of color quality to it. Another thing that a limited palette does is it helps you make decisions. So without a limited palette, let's say you're painting along and you think, I need green. Well, how am I going to get that green? I could use this green in a tube. I could use that green in a tube. I could mix this blue. I could mix that yellow. And you can end up with decision fatigue. Well, if you have a limited palette developed, that decision is going to be much easier to make. You're either going to make it with what you have right here in front of you, or you'll automatically know, I need to bring in a different color. And it's going to be much easier for you there. Another reason is harmony, color harmony. So I'm just going to keep picking on green because green is like one of those colors where you can absolutely start losing color harmony in your painting. Let's say that you're painting, you've got this beautiful blue sky. You've used cerulean blue and it's beautiful. And you've got, you know, these beautiful golden fields and these beautiful poppies over here. This is getting to be kind of a crazy painting. But so you've got these colors and now you need some green. But you're looking at your cerulean blue and your yellow that you used, and those mixed together, they don't make the green that you want. So you grab a tube of green that makes a green that you want. But that green doesn't agree with the yellow and the blue that you already have in your painting. Like it kind of pops, and not in a good way. It just doesn't feel cohesive. So having a limited palette, whether you've got 2 or 3 blues and 1 to 3 blues, 1 to 3 yellows on your palette, if you stay within that family and you use this in your sky and you use this in your grass, and then you can grab those 2 or something else that's always in your palette and mix those together to get your green, there's going to be a lot more harmony there. Yes, Annie. And he says, when I bought my oil paints, I didn't buy green. Excellent. Except, may I suggest getting a tube, just a small one, of phthalo green. Phthalo green is just really excellent for mixing. You may decide that it's a color that you can't do without and it has to be in your limited palette. You may use it ever so rarely, but phthalo green is a really good mixing green. I have it. I don't use it real often, but man, I'm glad when it's there. So those are just a few reasons to have a limited palette. So real quick again, it helps you establish your style. It helps you make snap decisions while you're painting so you don't have to stop and interrupt the flow. And what else did I say? Oh yeah, color harmony. A little bit of, it ensures more color harmony in your paintings. So that's what we're going to start doing today. And I want you to remember, I might sneeze in a second, just FYI. I want you to remember that let's say that at the end of today, and I don't expect this from anybody, so this is not pressure. But let's say at the end of today, you're like, oh, here's my limited color palette. These are the colors that I'm going to use. 6 months down the road, you're like, oh, I never use that color. I always find myself bringing in this color that's not in my palette. You know, all of those kind of changes that you get from experience with that palette. And now you want to change it, and that's okay. Your limited palette will evolve over time. Mine does. You know, it could be 3 years down the road and you just drop a color that you've relied on heavily forever. Or they stop making one of your primary colors. That happened to me, and I'm terrified. So, but I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Oh yeah, green gold is another good, helpful green color, primarily because it's so transparent and it's hard to get a really vivid, highly saturated green of that kind of bias, that goldy color that is transparent. It's easy to make it opaque, but not so easy to make it transparent. So yeah, green gold is a good one to have. Okay, so what we're going to start with is, I hope you all brought some red, blues, and yellows, but if not, that's okay. I have 3 of each, mostly because I have 3 little mini color wheels on here. Now, what I want you to do is, and you can make as many of these as you want, and I encourage you to do so. The more experience you get with mixing and trying different colors together, the easier it's going to be for you, and you just learn so much by doing that. Oh man, I just had something in my head I was going to say. One of the most important things that I want you to consider when developing your color palette, and you might want to take notes on a couple of these things. Really important things to consider when developing your color palette is, what do you need? What do you need your colors to do? Okay, if you like to paint really bright, vibrant landscapes that have like electrifying blues, very vivid greens, kind of muted yellows, you never want red. You don't need red. You don't paint red flowers or anything like that. Then you're really going to want to steer your choices towards colors that are going to do those things for you. If you, like me, do a ton of glazing, you're really going to want to look at transparent colors. There's no sense in considering cad red medium if I primarily glaze to get vivid colors, because I can't really glaze with this one, so it's not part of my limited palette. If you like very traditional painting, then you're probably going to like a split primary limited palette with very standard colors. Cad red and alizarin, cad yellow and yellow ochre, ultramarine blue and cobalt blue, or something like that. Welcome, Debbie. So really consider what you need from your paints to help you make your palette. And you may not know what you need right now. When you're kind of starting out, you might have a general idea of what kind of things you want to paint or how you want to paint, but ultimately you may not really know. Like if you think, I don't need purple, so I don't need to pick colors that make a beautiful purple because I don't ever use purple. Like my limited palette makes no purple. It does not make purple. But if I ever need purple, and occasionally I do, I bring it in. So anyway, this is just a starting point, and eventually I think you'll kind of settle on a a palette that you're comfortable with. So give yourself that time. All right, what we want to do, let's jump over here. And guys, as always, please feel free to just like shout out any questions you have. That's what I'm here for. That's what we're all here for. Okay, we will be doing a little bit of a color chart in a little bit, but for now, go ahead and put that one aside. Let's work on our little color wheels here. So these are much simpler. It's just got room for the 3 primaries and then 3 secondaries, just so we can get a feel for what these do. So I'm going to start up here on number 1. And let's see, am I going to pick random? No, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this one last. And other than that, I'm just going to pick random colors. A blue, a yellow, and a red. Yeah. Okay. So I randomly picked, I have Prussian blue, yellow ochre, and cad red medium. So let's see what happens with these colors. Tell me if you guys are making a wheel along with me. Tell me what colors you're experimenting with. And we are going to be pretty loose with our definition of what is red, what is blue, what is yellow, as you'll see shortly. All right. So there's my colors for this first wheel. Anybody want to make any guesses? Am I going to get any good greens? Am I going to get good oranges? Am I going to get good purples? Is this going to be a bright palette or is it going to be a muted palette? Let's see. And I put a thing here so you can write down what you used. I'm not going to take the time to do that right now, but that's a helpful thing when you're experimenting. All right, there's our red. I'm going to be lazy here and mix it right on the paper. There's some red and my yellow ochre, mixing it there. So, does not look like I got a very vivid orange. Let's add a little more yellow. It's very muted, very earthy. All right. Now to my yellow. And let's get our green going here. Ooh, I think that Prussian blue is really strong, so I didn't add a ton to it. That's a very earthy, super earthy green, but it is a true green. All right. So far this one is really nice. Like if you were a person who likes to paint like the desert a lot, red rock, things like that, this might be a really great palette for you. The Prussian blue is very vivid. It's a nice saturated blue that would be great for the sky. Oh, I got some yellow on there. And let's see if we get a purple. Some blue and some red. It is dusty and it is dark. I didn't grab any white, dang it. But I bet if we open this color up with a bit of white, it is a true purple. It's just very grayed down. Let's see. Yeah, it's a little violety. Do we get black? That's what the center circle is for. So some blue, some red, a little more red. A little bit of yellow, and remember, yellow kind of fudges black, makes it harder to get, but If we balance our colors the right way, we can get pretty close. And a chromatic black doesn't have to be true black to be a chromatic black. That's a chromatic black right there. Okay, so there's our first little wheel. Beautiful earthy colors. Consider if you like any of these mixes and if they do what you need them to do. You know, if you like this green and this is a green that you feel like you're going to want to paint with a lot, then these two colors might be exactly what you want in your limited palette. All right. Did anybody else choose any interesting colors, or is everybody just watching today? That's fine too. I'm not worried about it. Okay. I have a palette knife here. Dang it. I don't have a palette knife. I'll use this. You guys are quiet today. All right. For my next palette, I'm actually going to use, just watching, okay, quinacridone magenta for my red. Is it a true red? It could be argued. A lot of people consider quinacridone or magenta in general to be a primary color. So whatever you want. Yellow light Hansa. It's a pretty true yellow. And for my blue, we're going to get fancy and we're going to use Payne's Gray. That's going to be my blue for this palette. So some Payne's. Oh, I was wondering where Tammy was. Oh, that's right. She's got company this week. That's right. No, I hope she doesn't show up. It's her mom's birthday. She better not. And yeah, I understand that, Annie. The day almost got away from me too. Shh. All right. Hansa yellow. Okay, guys, start making your bets. What are we going to get in this palette? Are we going to get a true purple? Are we going to get a true green? Are we going to get a true orange? What do you think? I'm going to put down the primaries first, and then I want to hear what your thoughts are on what they're going to do. Let's start with Payne's. So, Payne's for blue, especially if you're using the Payne's Gray by Golden. Woof. That thing is blue. Oh, setting up a new printer is like, it's torture. I hate setting up a new printer, so I don't envy you, Janice. All right, that yellow is so bright and beautiful. Are we going to get a pretty green there? What you guys think? And quinacridone for our red. Are they going to make a good orange? Are these going to make purple? Payne's Gray makes great greens, Annie says, and Annie is completely right. So let's go ahead and make some green. So I'll be less lazy this time. I'll mix it right here. So some Payne's and some yellow. It's an earthy, dusty green, but that's a pretty natural looking green. That's a really pretty color. Let's go for orange. We gonna get a good orange? Somebody, before I get to purple, I want somebody to tell me if we're gonna get a good purple. All right, some quinacridone, mix it with the, nope. Don't look, that's cheating. I did that one on accident. Okay, yellow. And let's see, get you to see that without seeing the quinacridone. It's a very vivid, very pinky orange. Don't look. It's earthy though. So remember our biases. What do you think made that orange earthy? Both of these colors are so vivid. Why did we get an earthy orange? A good orange and a muted purple. Okay, let's see if we get a purple. All right, pretend like I didn't do that. So some quinacridone in there with the panes. And it is definitely on the purple side. It's pretty vivid. It's pretty vivid. It's not going to be a bluish purple, but yeah, that definitely counts as purple. That's right, Annie. Quinacridone is very blue. We're not going to say cool. It's got a lot of blue in it. And so that brings some blue to the orange, which mutes it down a little bit. So that's a really fun palette. There might be some things there that you really like. So make some notes of that. Oh, Mr. Moon says hi. Hi, Mr. Moon. Okay, now we're going to do my favorite one because it is my personal palette. Well, kind of. So remember when I said that it's really scary and terrifying when they just stop making one of your paint colors? It's been a color you lean on for years and suddenly they don't make it anymore. So that happened to me. Quinacridone Burnt Orange was in my palette, and the company that makes the pigment, not any paint manufacturer, the company that makes the quinacridone pigment stopped making it and a handful of other quinacridones. And so all the paint manufacturers had to stop making anything with those pigments in it. So that was heartbreaking. I still have some, so I have not tried this yet, but Golden did come out with a color it's close to quinacridone Burnt Orange. I painted over it. What is it called? Benzimidolone Burnt Orange. Why they gotta give them these names? So you can kind of see it here. This swipe is the color that's in the tube. This swipe here, which you can tell it's a little different. It's not quite as dark. It's a little bit redder than this. This is a little bit more brown. This is the quinacridone Burnt Orange. So I swiped it there to see how close they were. They're pretty close. I'm hoping that it will do what I want it to do, but I haven't used it yet because I still have some of my other colors. So I'm going to test it out here and see. So my palette, my primary need for my palette is twofold. It's threefold. I need transparent colors that I can glaze with. So all three of my colors are transparent. I need colors that work together to create very deep, very vivid blacks. And I can get that very easily in a few ways. And I need colors that are just a little muted. I don't typically want a lot of very vivid colors. And if I do, I bring those in my ancillary colors, which are all opaque. So the quinacridone Burnt Orange is my red. My blue is, you guessed it, phthalo turquoise. That's my jam. Love me some phthalo turquoise. I like to paint a lot of night scenes, and so this is just the perfect color for it. My yellow. Remember when I said let's get creative with what we consider red, blue, and yellow? My yellow is transparent burnt sienna, Pierre 101. Does that look like yellow? It doesn't look like yellow. But I think you'll see why it's yellow. So that's my whole palette aside from any opaque colors that I use. And let's see what happens. So we'll put out this burnt orange color first. It looks a lot like quinacridone burnt orange. It's pretty similar. Yeah, they also quit making quinacridone. What was it called? Like it's that quinacridone yellow. I can't remember what it was called, but they had to quit making that one too. I don't think I even have any of that color. I never used it, but it was really pretty. All right, there's my turquoise. So with my red and my turquoise, am I going to get anything that even remotely resembles purple? Yeah, Janice. So every single brand calls it something different, and that's why I call it PR 101. In golden, it's transparent red oxide, something like that. So that's why I, harp on the pigment codes and why I always call it PR 101, transparent PR 101. They do have one. I just can't remember exactly what it's called. Like in my oil paints, of course I have a transparent PR 101 because that's my color palette. And the Gamblin is called transparent red earth. So it's always going to be called something different. Oh, you've got it. Excellent. Okay. So yellow, my PR 101. And I know you're going to look at this with the burnt orange and be like, those aren't that different. They're really not all that different, are they? So why do I have two such closely related colors in my palette? It's because they do completely different things. So let's see what happens. Let's do the boring one first. What's going to happen when I mix my red and my yellow? Not a lot. I get a color that looks exactly like each of them for the most part. Not very different. I don't actually use these two in every single painting. Sometimes I'll choose, one or the other. Let's see if we get purple here. So I've got my burnt orange and my turquoise. And see if I spread it, you can see. Look at how, oh yeah, that color is going to be just fine. That color will do exactly what I want. I won't even miss the quinacridone burnt orange. I mixed it a little on the brown side there, but with those two colors, there's my chromatic black. Look at how black that is. But it's transparent and it's got a lot of life to it. And I can shift it a little bit blue so it's a super dark moody blue, or I can shift it to the red and get a really earthy dark red. So here is why I have two colors so closely related. Let's do that. I've got my turquoise and my PR 101. That turquoise is going to take over. PR 101's not as strong. Look what happens here. It's also a chromatic black, but Look how green it is. Can you even see that it's green there? Barely. Let me go like this. Get some water on my brush and we'll see, look at how green that is. So that's why I have two colors that are so closely related, because the bias of each, let's check this one too. Add a little more blue to it. The bias of each color completely changes what it does when it mixes with the blue. So because I paint a lot of night scenes, if I want green, I don't typically want a bright, vivid green because nighttime washes them out. So that's why I chose that. Okay, so that was exhausting. From here, you know, once you've got a handful of these, or even just one, whatever, I want you to start looking at them. And because did I lose you guys? I think my system is like disconnecting and reconnecting. So if I lose you, I'm sorry. To start out, when you're developing your first limited palette, I want you to do what's called a split primary palette. So a split primary is going to be 2 reds, 2 blues, 2 yellows. But you want to make sure that they each have very different biases. Like you don't want to pick, okay, good, I'm glad. You don't want to pick 2 reds that are both on the purple side, like quinacridone and alizarin crimson. They're both on the blue side. So I would pick, you know, alizarin crimson and cad red medium. Now I've got one that leans yellow. I've got one that leans blue. Same with your blues. Maybe like phthalo blue. That's pretty intense. Maybe like ultramarine blue, leans very red. Cerulean blue leans a little green. Those are 2 good ones to have on your palette. And yellows, maybe a nice vivid yellow, whatever that is for you. Cad yellow medium, Hansa yellow light, whatever. And yellow ochre or cad yellow deep, whatever your needs are. So that's what a split primary palette is. And that's what I want you guys to aim for developing first. And you'll automatically notice some colors never get used and they'll just automatically drop out of your palette. And that's cool. So let's start out with this. We're not considering the split primary at this point. We're just looking at what we have with these colors we tested, okay? So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, you know, I really like this blue. That would be really good for a sky. Out of all the blues I have here, this is the one that I like to use for a sky. So I'll just make a little star by it or up by the name. I like the orange that I got here. So if I like that orange, that means that I like these colors as well, because they made that orange. I don't necessarily like this green. I don't have a need for that color. I'm just making this up. This is just how I want you to kind of consider things. Move on to the next one. I like this purple. I love Payne's Gray. It's very helpful. If I like this purple, then, you know, that probably means that I want that. I don't know what yellow I want. I know I like this yellow, but beyond that, I don't know. Because I've decided I don't like this yellow, okay? So now we're going to take these colors we decided we liked. So I pretty much like this palette. I've got my blue, my yellow, and my red. We're going to put those ones out. Over here, I liked Payne's and quinacridone. So I'm going to grab those. And I've decided I don't have a need for anything here. Now I can make more color palettes. Maybe I'm going to switch out this blue and I'll switch out this red and we'll see what this yellow does with those two. I'll pick another color or another couple other colors and just basically keep doing these in different patterns until you're like, yes, I like the way that these colors mix together, I think. So I'm gonna fudge one. I'm gonna pick transparent burnt sienna anyway, because I like it. So once you've narrowed it down to, let's say 6 colors, 2 reds, 2 blues, 2 yellows. I'll pick Hansa. It's just easier. And this isn't about me. Once you've narrowed it down to 6 colors that you think you might like, rather than making a bajillion of these in every arrangement you can fathom, we're going to move to this. Now, the split primary color wheel, there is a split primary color wheel. Honestly, it kind of makes my head spin. I understand it. I like this better. So I can't teach you about the split primary color wheel because I don't like it. But do a little bit of research on it and see if that makes sense to you and if that's a tool that would be helpful for you. It's basically just a color wheel, but instead of saying, here's my red, you would say, like, here's my warm red, here's my cool red, here's my cool yellow, here's my warm yellow, etc. My brain does not like that, so I do this. So I know a lot of you have done color charts with me before, but some of you haven't. So we're just going to kind of high level hit this. Yeah, we're not going to spend like all day on it. And guys, I know that I'm just like talking a mile a minute here. So if you need something, please jump in and tell me. So we're going to, if you're not familiar with how these work, what we're going to do is we're going to take our colors, and I like to put them in a warm, cool pattern. And it doesn't matter if you have your warm color first and your cool color last, or if you do it the other way around. It doesn't matter. Just be consistent. So I'm going to do cool, warm. So there's my reds. The yellow's kind of hard, but I feel like that's a cool, warm. And my blues. And yeah, Prussian is definitely warmer than Payne's Gray. So I've got them lined up like that. Next, I'm going to take my paper here and I'm going to write down the names across the top. So I'm just going to be really quick with this. Quinn, Cad, Hansa, Ochre, Payne's, and Prussian. Now down this side, I'm going to do the same thing in the exact same order. You're going to get the same result if you get it all screwy, but if you put it in the same order, it's going to be a lot easier to read. So I'm going to go Quinn, Cad, Hansa, Ochre, Payne's. I'm not going to make you watch me fill in this entire thing, just enough to give you an idea. All right. Is that confusing to anyone? Does that make sense? We good so far? Now what this is is it gives us the opportunity to mix every single color with every single other color. This line down the middle, these are going to be pure. So if you look, here's Prussian blue. If you go straight down and Prussian blue and you go straight over, that's where they meet. This square is just going to be Prussian blue. Same with all these. Panes, yellow ochre, Hansa, cad, quin. Technically, what you mix on the top is going to be the same as what you mix on the bottom, right? Because, God, this is really in my way. I need a bigger TV tray or maybe like an actual table. So if I mix Hansa with cad red, then, you know, they're going to go right here. That's going to be a Hansa, or quinacridone, sorry. Hansa, quinacridone right there. But I'm also going to have Hansa, quinacridone right there. So you can handle this in several ways, whatever seems like it is going to afford you the most valuable information. Some people just completely scribble this bottom half out. They don't worry about it. They don't fill it out. They only fill in this top part, and that's fine. Some people will fill out both, but everything on this side, they'll add a little bit of white too to kind of open the color up a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. What I like to do sometimes is up at the top, I'll mix it heavier to whatever's up here. So this one here would be mostly Hansa with a speck of quinacridone. And this one would be mostly quinacridone with a speck of Hansa. Just so you can kind of see, you know, what happens if it's stronger or lighter in one color or another. Yeah, you can do it however you like, whatever makes sense to you. I'm just going to fill a couple of them in to give you an idea. So let's go ahead and do the Hansa quinacridone one. So up here, I'm going to go mostly Hansa with a speck of quinacridone. And then I'm going to add more quinacridone. And fill that one in there. Just gives you an idea of the range of colors that those two make. So I think I've shown you guys before my, yeah, they are. It's a really great mixture, the Hansa and quinacridone. Sorry, one sec. I think I've shown you before my color chart that I made with watercolor. It's massive because I have a sickness called I'm addicted to color theory. So this is basically what it will look like when you're done. This is obviously a much larger version, but it's the exact same thing. I had to tape a bunch of watercolor paper together because it's so big. But with these colors across the top and the exact same colors down the side, I have this massive range of colors. And it's not really exciting in this area when you're mixing like reds and, I don't know, reds and yellows. It just kind of all looks the same. But as soon as you start getting blues, start bringing blues into the mixes, man, you open up your possibilities. Look at that range of greens. Actually, I think there is some green in here. There is some actual green paint in here, but these are really helpful, you know, so if you are working with a massive number of paints like this, which I don't recommend, and you're like, I need purple. What? Good grief. Which colors are going to mix to make the purple that I want? Then I can come here and be like, oh, look at that. That's the color that I want. And now I know exactly how I'm going to make it. So once you've selected your 6 colors and you've made a color chart that's full here, now you can start to really like nitpick it. I think I have a small one that I did recently. I was working on paring down my watercolor palette recently for a little travel size, because clearly that's too many watercolors to take along with me anywhere. And I made a couple of little charts. Let me see if I can find them. Not there. Oh, I think I know where it is. My desk has like a little shelf under it, and I just kind of like jam things in there, and then I lose them forever. Is this it? No. Anyway, I can't find it. But what I did was say, okay, I'm looking at all of the mixtures that they make. And you know what? Now that I'm looking at yellow ochre, I don't care for the way it mixes with any of these colors. Like it doesn't do anything that I need it to do. So I'm going to strike yellow ochre. I'll bring in another yellow to replace it with. Payne's Gray is good. Cad Red is good for the most part. You know, I'm just going to kind of judge it like that. And then make another one. Just kind of refine it. This is a lot of work. If you're not quite so, you know, OCD about your colors like I am, then maybe this is too much work and you don't want to go through that. And that's okay. Because like I said, you guys are the boss of your own painting. But I think that it's super helpful. And then paint with that palette for, you know, for a while, and really get to know it and figure out what works and what doesn't. Clearly you can bring white in, or, you know, if you know that you're going to use Mars Black, bring Mars Black in. You can have any givens that you want. I didn't make room for any of that on this, but I mean, you can just draw it on a piece of paper and make one as big as you need it to be. But give yourself some time with it to find out if everything does what you need. And if you find yourself always bringing in cerulean when you're painting, maybe cerulean needs to be added to your palette. Maybe you find that you added Prussian blue, but man, you never use it. You never use it. Kick it out, bring cerulean in. That must be all I had to say, because I can't think of anything else to say. So, what questions do you guys have? I want to know if you have any questions. I also want to know if any of you already work with some amount of a limited palette and what that palette is. Or if any of you have kind of started experimenting with it and what colors you feel like are going to end up being in your limited palette. My paintings, so not tutorial paintings, but like this one here and this one here. Is that all I've got right there? That's, yeah. Oh, and this is one of my favorite paintings that I've ever done, and I will probably never sell this painting because I love it so much. And I know that a lot of people are probably like, that seems like a weird painting to be in love with, but I don't care. So this painting is with my same palette, those three colors. I did bring in some alizarin crimson. As you can see, I've got some true pink over here. So I did bring in some alizarin crimson. What else did I bring in? I don't think there's any white in this painting. I don't tend to use white. But yeah, otherwise, this is those same three colors with some opaque colors for white. I'm just trying to show you so you get an idea that with a limited palette, you can still have a wide range of vibes in your painting. They're not all going to turn out the same colors. I actually don't, ooh, it's dusty. I actually don't love this painting, but this is with those same colors. Let's see. This is with those same colors, but I brought in a yellow for my opaque color. It's one of my ancillary colors. This is the same colors, but with my, you know, my opaque whites, but those same three colors that I showed you. So, anyway, nobody has anything to say about color palettes, their own color palette. That's okay. You guys are so quiet sometimes. It makes me awkward. But yeah, so I want you to work on that for the next couple of weeks. Take some time with it. Think about it. Make a few little charts, wheels, all of that. Do some small paintings. Get yourself some watercolor paper or acrylic paper or little canvases, like the little canvas boards. And just make very simple paintings with your chosen color palettes, just to kind of get a feel for what they do practically. So, okay, Annie, I'm excited to hear what kind of palettes you guys determine that you want to use. Please feel free to post your wheels and your charts and your questions and your palettes and any paintings you do with them. Post them in Discord. If you're not in Discord yet, get there, please. Let me know if you're having problems with that and I can help you. That's all I have to say. It is snowing like crazy here again today, so I'm locked in the house. So maybe I'll go play around with some color wheels too. So, all right, everybody, I hope that you have a great Sunday, and I will see you again very soon.